So is the modern dating and being considered side pieces, is that changing the game for men and their expectations of wanting and desiring more than one woman?
I'm not convinced that polygamy or polygamy is for someone who's looking for love.
A lot of them would just resort to, oh, I'm gonna hit it, quit it, leave all the responsibilities behind.
It goes back to their egos.
9 out of 10 times, I think it's lust. I think it's rooted in lust. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I don't know.
Absolutely.
Ladies.
Now, before we get any further, please make sure you take the time right now and hit the like button. That's right. Hit the like button and subscribe. We are checking with the women and we are getting their answers to the questions on polygamy.
Ifa Bukola on the line, who's going to be a co-host for tonight's session. We had the polygamy or polygamy discussion with the men a few days ago, and we want to bring women in on this. So when you hear the term polygamy or polygamy, what comes to mind for you? I'm going to start it off with Mo.
I honestly don't remember the difference between, like, I know there's differences between polyamory and polygamy, and the different polys. So I don't know which specific one it is, but it's generally people in where there's more than one partner in the relationship.
Mm-hmm. And I can quickly give you guys the definition. Monogamy is one person is married to another person or committed to another person, just one-on-one. Polygamy, with the M, is a person who is married to more than one person at a time. And that polygamy can be divided into polygyny with an N. And that is when a man is married to multiple women or is committed to multiple women. And polyandry is when a woman is married to multiple men. Polyandry is not as common as polygamy, but it's definitely out there. And then you have group marriages and same-sex polygamy. Okay, we're gonna tonight be focused more on polygamy with an N, where the men have more than one partner or more than one wife, and we will have a few questions about polyandry, which is the women have more than one husband. Okay. Why do you think many men are starting to be drawn to this idea of having multiple partners or multiple wives, Lisa?
I think one of the main reasons is, for the younger men, I feel like it is more so selfish, sex-driven reasons. The older men, I think it's more so a little bit of stability and help, and maybe have to do with their offspring and bearing more children. So I think it kind of just depends.
Okay, Hannah, what do you think? Why do you think more and more men are starting to be drawn to having multiple partners or multiple wives?
In some cases, I agree with Lisa, what she said. I also believe that it also has to do with people maybe realizing the value of women too, like how valuable women can be or how valuable a woman can be. And I think some men look at it like, oh, well, maybe if I had more of what's good for me, then, that might be a thing that's reasonable or makes sense. I also think that it can be looked at like, I was explaining this concept to my friend, that relationships, some people look at them or can correlate them to like a job. Like, I feel like right now in this economy, it's hard or difficult for a person to keep one job or to maintain one job, but some people do it. But some people have multiple jobs. I don't see how they can work multiple jobs, but they do it. I feel like it's kind of the same with how, a man in a relationship, a man can be with one woman or he can be with multiple women based off of, I guess, what he's looking to do or be.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Now, I didn't do a poll before we started, but let me go ahead and ask a poll. I'm curious. A poll before we start getting into the nitty gritty, and then I'll do a poll after. How many people on the line are for polygamy? A man having more than one woman, or their mate having more than one partner?
I'm for it in like the cultural context. I wouldn't do it personally.
Okay, so most for it in the cultural context. We're gonna find out what that means, but you wouldn't do it personally. Okay, and anybody else? And okay, so this.
I was saying I agree with Mo.
Okay, for a cultural standpoint, but against it personally. Okay, and then those that are against it. Okay, so and then those that kind of on the fence. I guess that's what you are, Lisa.
That would be me.
You're kind of on the fence. Okay. Well, let's see if any of you guys' minds get changed by the end of the evening. Mo, do you think that more black men who are looking for polygamy, what do you think they're looking for when they're looking for more than one woman? What do you think that it is that they're looking for?
9 out of 10 times, I think it's lust. I think it's rooted in lust. I'm not gonna sugarcoat it. I don't know. I think it's just that, and I actually think it's closely related to the devaluing of women, not really the value of women. Because it's like, I feel like if a car, like I feel like my car gets me to work every day. I really like my car. I think it's a good looking car. When you value something, I don't feel like you need so many of them. So I feel like as society continues to devalue women, they feel like more is better, or they want more, because that traditional dynamic doesn't hold as much value to them anymore.
Okay. Hannah, what do you think? What do you think men are looking for when they are looking for these polygamous relationships?
I think it just depends on the person, because different people are looking for different things. So some people may be looking for sexual experiences with multiple women. That may be the thing, or they just want to see what it's like because of what women can do and how they look and different varieties, and having access to them. Okay, cool. Some men are looking for that. They may be looking for control. They may be looking for power or whatever, and they may place that in having multiple women, which is something that I've seen. But there is also an aspect of, I'm going to use what Mo said with her car. So you have an everyday car that takes you to and from work, and that's perfect. But in some instances, there are people who would need like an everyday car, or they have a trucking company, so they have a truck, or they have a big family, so they have a 4-door sedan, or they have a bigger truck. They have all these different varieties of cars that do different things. So I think that it just depends. Like, you can place value on a thing and place value on that in its quantity as well. You place value in their quality and their quantity.
Okay.
And so I think it just depends. I think there's a double, there's like two perspectives, or maybe there's multiple ways to look at it as far as how women are being valued.
Okay. Lisa, what's your answer in response to that? What do you think for?
Honestly, I think it stems from ego. I think a lot of their decision making in that aspect, it all is rooted from ego, whether that be from the sexual standpoint of, I just want to fulfill my sexual needs, still stemming from their ego, or it being just the, what is the word I want to use? Validation from having multiple women, and how that will make them feel maybe a little bit more superior or do something to their self-esteem. Once again, I think that goes back to their egos.
Okay. Okay. Well, Bukola, do you have any questions so far?
Well, not necessarily questions, but with the quantity versus quality thing. or,
Mhm.
the truth is that if we look in, for example, you look in your kitchen, how many utensils do you really need?
Mhm.
How many bowls or plates or cups do you really need? One of each, if that. But yet, at every house, you see there's many plates, there's many forks, many kinds of forks, many cups, many kinds of cups. And you go shopping for your food, what you really need versus what you want. If we really, consider everything on a needs basis, there's so much that we wouldn't consume or that we wouldn't have or even experience, including, your groceries list or the clothes that you wear. Do you really need more than one outfit? Do you need more than one pair of socks? Need and want, it really is a theme that has quite a bit of illusion around it, and probably what we desire could be part of what we need for emotional fulfillment. Who knows? I think that's a good point to make, but I think it also unites all of us, and that we choose things, we obtain things, we consume things that we probably don't need, but yet it seems to be an emotional need for whatever reason, The other thing I would say is that I think that the way that most men will look at polygamy or polygyny, polyamory, I really believe that lust is the leading factor with it. Even though I am pro polygamy or polygyny, I'm all for it, which doesn't automatically mean I'm against monogamy. I just believe that both have their place, both are relevant, and both are probably needs for the people. But I think that lust has a lot to do with the curiosity that people have about it. I really believe it's more curiosity than anything. But for those who really have an understanding of themselves, or especially the value, significance of a woman and her role, what she's there for, what her aim is, there's a lot to be there's a lot to be understood about how you can really multiply yourself and what you accomplish and what you create in one lifetime, folding time exponentially through women. Nothing moves without women. Nothing has a pulse without women. And that's just not a baby, but, even process, So I think everybody's making a really good point. And most certainly a lot of things can be true at the same time,
Absolutely. Well, I want to play devil's advocate here a little bit with the lust factor that was definitely the common denominator with all of the ladies on the line. If it's lust, why not just have extramarital affairs, or why not just have affairs? If it's lust and fulfill your lust, why take on the responsibility of financially caring for another woman and having to make sure her bills is taken care of, or that she is satisfied emotionally or physically as much as the other woman? Or why put plant seeds and have offspring with multiple women, and take on that whole burden financially, when you could just have extramarital affairs if it's about lust? Why do you think these men want to go ahead and make a commitment to it and take on that responsibility? I have hands raised. Ifa Bukola, what do you say to that?
Well, the responsibility factor, that's the part that they don't know that they're getting themselves into.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also the part that should be the leading and the leading insight into the situation. That should be the leading insight. What responsibility am I inheriting here? What duty am I inheriting here? What's the load? Do I have the capacity? That should be the first inquiry. It's something like that. But in the immaturity of man, it's an idea of lust that's really an illusion, because after the honeymoon, and you have post clarity, if you know what I mean, there's a responsibility, there's the duty. And the amount of time that you spend in your honeymoon and the amount of time that you spend in duty and responsibility, they just don't match. There's a long line of responsibility and duty that you have to show up to. And yes, you can have your fun in between, but I think a lot of men could be disillusioned once they create that situation or get into that situation and feel the weight or the burden of the responsibility that also has to go along with it. I don't think that should be a discouraging factor, but that should be how we should start looking at women in the first place, because I think that it would cure and prevent a lot of things that we regret.
Okay, let's hear some of the ladies. Hannah, why do you think, with what I just said, it's more than just, if it's lust, the fact that they want to take the commitment on, which could be even more of a burden, more hard work. Why do you think they would want to do it that way instead of just going out cheating?
I think that if a person is like consciously aware of, I'm taking on multiple women and multiple responsibilities, it could be like what Lisa said, like an ego thing. Like, oh, well, if I could do it with 1, I could do it with 2, I could do it with 3, I could do it with 4, however many I want. Then it can become like a ego stroking thing. But with the lust, I think that the idea of just having multiple of one thing that's already good is just like fulfill the lust first, and then we'll deal with the other things that come with it later. Like, whatever that's going to make me feel, from a man's point of view or perspective, when it comes to lust, like, okay, well, let me just try it first, and then whatever responsibilities come, we'll deal with that later if I can't handle it. And that's where we kind of see where those type of relationships don't work.
So you think that a man out of lust will take on an extra burden financially rather than hit it and quit it and leave and leave the financial burden alone?
Well, no, because I think that if every man could, they would. Like, if every man could have multiple women, they would have multiple women. But a lot of them can't. So a lot of them would just resort to, oh, I'm gonna hit it, quit it, leave all the responsibilities behind. And then you got ones that say, oh, well, I already have resources, I can hit it, I don't even have to quit it, I can stay and keep all these responsibilities. And then some of them still end up quitting it and say, I can't handle this.
Okay. Mo, you done put your hand up so many times, girl. What's that?
I took it down and put it up once. And the reason I took it down was because I was going to say exactly what Hannah said. Like, I completely agree. I think it comes back to what Lisa said earlier about ego. And I think that there's just no social status points that you get for cheating. I think, like, if you are cheating on your wife, you get no status points for that. If you have an open relationship, maybe as a man, you get a few brownie points. Like, yeah, my wife lets me have sex with whoever I want, and but she know where home at. You might get a couple of points. But to be in the position of, I come home, I got 2 women rubbing my feet, 2 women cooking for me, 2 women having sex with me, 2 women or 3 women, whatever. I think that there's just social status points in that. So I think it connects to ego. And then I also just wanted to say I really agree with what Ifa Bukola had said about a lot of the times the men not knowing up front what the responsibility burden will be like until after the fact.
Yeah. I think we have, and I must definitely state this so that we can give our audience a little bit of perspective. We have at least 2 that I know of on the line who has had experience with polygamy, with a man having multiple wives, personally in their life, whatever that relationship was. I'm not quite sure if we have total of 3. Hannah, have you been around it, known someone or anything?
Yeah, I've known people who
Okay.
have polygamous relationships.
Okay.
And I've done a lot of research and talked to I've been on other podcasts too and talked about it. So
Okay. So
yeah.
none of you guys on here are coming in speaking blindly on the subject. You have been a part of, witnessed it, affected, or whatever way. So I just want our guests to know you're coming in, with some experience in this whole thing. Now, I'm gonna move to the next question. Do you think, ladies, do you think that it's a double standard when it comes to men wanting multiple wives versus allowing their woman to have multiple relationships, multiple men? Do you think there's a double standard there? Lisa.
Absolutely. I feel like men like the idea of ownership when it comes to having multiple women. I don't think that is, I don't think that that's reciprocated. When you see poly relationships, typically it is the man having multiple wives. And I feel like Ifa Bukola said, as far as them not understanding the full responsibility they're getting into with having these multiple women, coming from an ego standpoint of just wanting the look of it and wanting to make them theirs for that ownership title, but they don't want their women to turn around and have multiple men, or the idea of sharing their woman with multiple women is really not accepted as much as it is when it's the man doing it.
Mm-hmm. Well, and for those of you who have not listened to the men's podcast, we asked the men the same question. Of course, most of the men, if not all the men on the line, do not like the idea of sharing their woman. Some of the contributing factors were, okay, if she gets pregnant, you wouldn't know whose child it is, and rightfully a man wants to know, as far as lineage and his offspring, who does the child belong to. Some of the other things is, I don't want to necessarily say from a property or ownership standpoint. It's just that, no, I'm not, my girl is my girl. When the man is considered the head of the household, now you're giving her multiple heads. Who does she truly ultimately listen to? Mo, do you think it's a double standard out there?
I think by default, of course, I believe that, but if I'm being honest, like, I've never seen or heard that double standard like take place in real life, so that's why I was hesitant to speak on it. Like, if I had to guess, yes, but I probably, because I have never seen women even vouch or ask to be in a polygamous. I forgot the one for when it's the matriarch.
Landry.
Yeah, I've never heard a woman say that she wants that, so I think it's just not as loud of a conversation. But I would assume that if I heard that conversation, there would be a bias. But I'm not going to act like I've ever heard it before.
Okay. All right, Hannah.
Do I think it's a double standard? I think that just speaking generally with society, it's never been a thing that is looked at as good if a woman is, I guess, having sex with multiple people. Having multiple sex partners for a woman is either frowned upon, or it's like, it's not like a oh, she's married to multiple men. She's kind of just a, doing whatever she wants in the streets woman is what we're talking about for a woman who has multiple partners. It's not even talked about in a type of setting or environment like men have set up with multiple women, where if, example, a man has a stable situation with a few wives in a home, no, societal instances, we're not talking about a woman who lives in a home with 3 men, it's just like Mo said, it's not really a conversation. It's just a completely different view on what it actually means for a woman to have quote unquote multiple husbands.
Yeah. Well, Bukola, definitely chime in on this.
Well, I'm still not convinced that a woman naturally desires more than one man.
Okay.
Drop the mic.
Period. Well, and if I can shed a little bit of light, I have done some research extensively many years ago on this whole topic of polygamy. Period. And one of these subsections of polygamy is polyandry, where the woman has more than one wife. And I know it is a common practice in India, New Zealand, and a few other smaller countries overseas to do it. And the specific reason was if a woman marries the oldest brother, then she has to basically marry the younger brothers, right, to prepare them for their wives. She does not necessarily sleep with them, but she will be responsible to care for them in India, if you will. The other things I have seen is if there is sickness. In this country, there are some women who do practice it. There were a few when I did research out of New York and Philadelphia, and it was due to these specific women or due to sickness. Maybe their current husband was sick, could not sexually perform, could not provide children, and loved his wife so much, or what have you, and understood and wanted her to be satisfied physically and maternally as well. So they had an arrangement of polyandry for the woman. But oftentimes it is not for the woman to have intercourse with several men. It's really for the woman to take on the responsibility of being a wife for the other men for whatever reason. So I don't know if that is considered honorable or not. I'm neutral in it, but just to give you, I know someone said they never heard of it. So just to let you know, it does exist. It is currently happening. How do you think? Okay, so we as Black families, we are already navigating, systematic challenges. Financially, there's a financial strain on us and societal pressure and things like that. We are already navigating these challenges as single households or even as a one husband or one man household. How do you think that can change if we bring in multiple wives or multiple families? Because oftentimes these wives might even come with, children that they already have. Lisa?
Sorry, I couldn't unmute it. I honestly feel like that is my pro being for it, because I do feel like in certain instances it will help families stay together. I think the burden sometimes of childhood and motherhood and just parenting and just the space that we're in economically, it is beneficial to have multiple people helping out in so many different areas. Whether that be raising the children, that be financial, that be just any type of living situations. I feel like those are some of the cons that I see beneficial to an arrangement like that.
I agree. I think actually I'm in the same place where I think those are some of the times where I think it's okay, which is, in certain cultures, I think that's what it's more so about. It's more so about the family dynamic and about how the household moves. And my only issue with polygamy is when it is rooted in lust, because or even in a belief or an expectation that your love can be split between people. That's when I personally don't support it. And this comes from like real life experience, not with me, but like firsthand account of it. It's very unrealistic to believe that your love can quite literally be split in half. If you have two partners, to think that you can love and make each person feel loved exactly 50% is very unrealistic, and it's not sustainable. Whereas when you're in the polygamous dynamic for those reasons of how you want to uphold your household, how you want to split the load of parenting your children and things like that, it kind of makes all the sense in the world. So I think I'm more supportive of it when it basically based on the reasoning behind it.
The reasoning behind it, but you don't think that the love can be as equal. Do you have siblings, Mo?
Yes, I do have siblings.
Okay. Do you think that your parents can love all of their children, or just only one?
They can love all of their children.
Okay. I asked that because that's one of the questions that came up with the men's segment. They said it's like asking a woman to pick only one of her children to love when she can love all of them equally.
But you also can't make each child feel loved equally all the time. So we even see that with parent-child relationships.
Okay. All right. Bukola, I seen your hand. Let me get Hannah real quick, and then I'm going to have you definitely follow up on that. Hannah?
Yes. So I think that is one of the, of course, benefits if there's, men having multiple children with women, and raising a home in that way, if that's the structure. But you see that happening where families just kind of just band together and help, that's a culture thing as well, and just help raise all the kids. And it doesn't have to be a polygamy type of situation, but some people just choose that route, again, usually just based off of what we see as the lust. Mm-hmm. So I understand, what those benefits would be if a person were to say, oh, it's not just about lust for me, it's this, that, and that reason. But it can be driven by the lust and not for the building aspects. Mm-hmm. And also, just to touch on the point about the children, right? I think it's just a little bit odd to compare your wives to a woman having children, because those are things that we created, that we birthed. And with women, it's like, okay, you got to choose your wife when you have to find her, and then you have to choose her knowing you already have. I don't know. I think it's just very different. Like, I think that the way that the relationships are being built, of course, it will be hard for a woman to choose one of her children because, I don't know, it's kind of hard to explain. But I hope you understand what I'm trying to say.
And this is why, definitely the men's podcast, I definitely encourage you guys to go and listen to it. I know Ifa Bukola explained on the previous podcast of the order that God had assigned. And, he told the woman to respect her husband and the husband to love his wife. Okay. You can definitely love multiple people as well as you can respect multiple people. Let me go ahead and bring in Ifa Bukola. Well, what have you been holding on to? Your hand can't shot up first, but I wanted to get the ladies out there first. Well, what do you have to say?
Well, it's some great things being said, and it's a lot of things that some thought, consideration, hopefully be given to on this topic. But with the original question that you had about our community, I'm not convinced that polygamy or polygyny is for someone who's looking for love. If you're looking for love, that's more of the experimental youth, okay? Because you have to work your way through the illusion of seeking something that is already with you, okay? And it takes time to learn that lesson. But for those who are disillusioned from that, it's really something for people who are looking for efficiency, possibly stability and security. But looking for love, such as polyamory, polyamory, uh, you're creating violence because passion is coming together, not purpose. And if it's not efficiency that you're looking for, an idle mind is the devil's workshop. Now you have a lot of trouble to manage because people don't have assignments and roles that are clarified. There's not a vision that everybody came together on. So if you don't give a vision, something or somebody else is going to give that vision. And it might come from somewhere that's not healthy. So in our communities, especially people who are single with children, I really do believe that if we could be selfless enough, it could benefit the children more than anyone.
I like that. Lisa, what are you saying?
I 100% agree with what Ifabukola just said. I think it's more so once you take love or the illusion of love off the table, it's more so like a business or a corporation. Everyone has its role and duties. So whatever everybody's bringing to the table to make that operation move as smoothly as possible, I think that's more so how that should be structured to benefit everyone. Now, if it's based off of just this emotion of love per se, like you said, that's a super dangerous game. And then I want to kind of go back to what Mo said as far as her feeling like you can't love more than one person equally. Everybody doesn't require the same amount of love that somebody else may need. So you may have a partner that is a little bit more needy per se than, let's say, the second wife or husband. They may not need all of that attention or that much of their spouse to be active with them. So everybody may not need that same level of it always being 50-50.
Mm-hmm.
And that may work for that certain dynamic group of people.
Mm. That's true. I'm glad you said that because that is true. Every woman is different. Every man is different. Speaking on polygamy, every woman is different. Some women are not as physical, lovey, touchy. Some women don't require as much attention as others. Some women want the attention, and a man may feel like he needs that balance. Um, Now, do you think if there is a relationship, right, a monogamous relationship that is occurring, do you think if that monogamous relationship is having problems, do you think that they can, especially with the man, I'm going to go ahead and say the man because right now we're going to focus on polygamy, especially if the man keeps cheating, do you think that introducing polygamy to that relationship can solve some of their problems? Mo?
Yeah, I think if it depends on what the problems are. And I think Lisa made a great point. At the end of the day, it's about compatibility. I think y'all know by now that I don't believe in like a wrong or right answer to things. I think people are different, and if it works for you, then it makes sense. And so if like based on whatever problems that you're having, if one person needs 20% in this department, 80% in that department, if the math checks out, then if you, as long as you guys sit down and have that consensual conversation together, how do you feel like bringing this in would solve the problem? And both people agreed, then sure.
Mm-hmm. Hannah?
It's hard to say because, like Ifa Bukola said, like if you're looking for love is one thing, and if you're looking for efficiency is another thing. So if a man is just, I believe, frivolously cheating, I don't see what the efficiency in that is. It just seems like maybe that's just a lust thing. So I don't see how inviting or introducing a polyamorous relationship will solve anything. It's just basically saying, okay, go fulfill your lust, but now I'm okay with it. Now I know who it is that you're fulfilling your lust with.
Could
Like,
he be
what's the difference?
fulfilling his nature though, Hannah?
Could that be in his nature?
That he, as lions are, or most of the animal kingdom, the male counterpart usually has a heavy sexual drive, is meant to multiply. So could he be fulfilling his nature and not necessarily operating out of lust? Could he be saying, for some reason, this is what I'm feeling, I want to be fruitful and multiply. I want to
I mean, yeah. I mean, perhaps. But if that's your thing, if you want to be fruitful and multiply, and you want to do it with someone outside of you signed up for a monogamous relationship. You said two people in a monogamous relationship. So if you feel like it's in your nature to have sex with multiple people, or you're just now finding this out in this monogamous relationship, that's something that you need. Because if that's the case, then you could be whole time looking for a polyamorous relationship. But I think it's about people and boundaries, and like Mo said, having an open line of communication. But even still, you related men to lions and us to animals, and there are plenty of animals who have, women or female animals who have sex with multiple other male animals, and vice versa. But we as humans, we have the opportunity to choose what we want to do and walk down that path. And if that changes, then fine. But I think it's a respect thing,
Okay.
and a love thing too.
Okay, Lisa, your hand was up.
Oh, I don't even know where I want to start at. Can you reiterate the initial question?
So I had said, do you guys think that if a relationship was already failing, or the man is continually cheating, do you think introducing a polygamy relationship into the situation would help? That was
Absolutely not.
Okay.
Polygamy relationships does not mean you just get to go screw everything. There's still structure that needs to be had. There's still discipline that needs to be had. So if you are already showing in your character that you lack discipline in that area, opening the door for just multiple women does not fix that. That does not fix that character flaw. I think the misconception of being in a polygamy relationship just means any and everything goes that's an issue, because I feel like there's still structure that goes into making that decision. That does not just give that man the opportunity to just anything goes. I just don't agree with that whatsoever. I think it takes even more discipline to be in a polygamy relationship than not to be.
Okay, that's true. If I would call out your hand.
Well, I think similarly, if you're in the habit of being promiscuous when you're single, that's not going to go away when you get in a monogamous relationship. The addiction is still there, and you're more than likely to sneak and entertain it, even after you agreed that you're going to be monogamous with this person. And that trait doesn't go away because you have another wife. It's still there, because it's you. It's not, yes, you're answering your nature, but you're betraying your contract to answer your nature. You have the cart before the horse. You're supposed to clarify your contract. This is who I am. This is what I believe. This is what I want, and this is how I want it. You have to give that person the chance to say yes or no. I want to be a part of that, or I want to experience that. But after agreeing with someone and making a contract that, yes, it's just you and me, that's it, this is the story, and you go and do something else, that's betrayal, and it's a trait of your character. And that trait of the character is still going to be there, even if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or more wives. It's still going to be there. Just because you have more than one wife doesn't mean that you're in a place where integrity and character is now obsolete and it doesn't apply. if anything, it more so applies because you have to have a greater sensitivity about what you're creating or what you're co-creating, because when you ignite a spark, it's going to spread and multiply through many women, and women are multipliers. Whatever energy you're putting out, they're going to multiply, good or bad. So you want to be especially careful in the midst of wives about your character, So I think that's a character trait, and it's not good. You want to get rid of that before you get involved.
Mm-hmm. And Mo, I see you applauding Lisa and Ifabukola's response. Some powerful stuff, and that definitely needs to be acknowledged. If you are already having discipline problems or commitment issues, polyamory is not going to solve it. Now, ladies, I know that oftentimes people think with the polygamous relationships, time, right, being divided, there's going to be patience required amongst the women as well as the men, communication and understanding. Do you think that women can do that if they are the ones initiating the polygamous relationship? Because there are some women out there who say, you know what, I want to bring in a sister wife because I want to relieve the burden and the responsibility. As I think someone online already said earlier, it's not necessarily always about the sex, but it could be about relieving burdens to the woman. So do you think that the woman, all of the time, the communications, the patience, and all of that can be well handled if the woman initiates the polygamous relationship, Lisa?
I personally do. I feel like just I don't want to say from personal experience, but from experience, I find that most older women, once you realize how much of a job it is being a partner and a mother at times, we want relief.
Yeah.
And if we can have a little bit more input in the structure of that relief and how that comes, whether that be introducing another party into the relationship for that relief, I think it's a little bit more acceptable. I think most of the time the women don't have enough say and enough input in how that structure goes.
So, ladies, but what do you say to the fact that you may have, for those who are not necessarily married or for those who are married, you may have already participated in a polygamous relationship and you just don't know. You may have, when you are dating and you're single and you're dating, you know that this man might be out there messing with other women. But why do we as women accept that more when we're quote unquote dating and we don't have a commitment from the man? Why are we so accepting of that? And I ask that because in so many, as I said before, songs and so many TV shows and so many circles out there, you have women accepting being side pieces. You have women accepting messing with married men. So quote unquote, they are side pieces. And it's okay. But the moment structure comes in to play and there is a common agreement, then it's, oh no, I can't do that. Why do you think that there's a double standard in that mindset, Hannah?
So I'm gonna speak on this to my level of understanding because I don't really know, but this is just where my mind goes. Where certain women may be okay with being a side piece or whatever. I think it may just be what we mentioned earlier, as far as some women only requiring certain things, like how SZA made that song "The Weeknd,"
Exactly,
and
perfect.
Stuff like that, where they're okay with being a side piece for a moment because of the fulfilling feel, whatever. They may be lonely or whatever, so they're just okay with having what they need to fulfill at that time. I think that when it comes to just structure, now you're talking about like part of a woman's livelihood and what that structure is doing for her in her life or her family. There's just a lot more, I don't know, a lot more to lose, I guess. Or a lot more that's being built up, time and energy and things that are built up into having a structure versus, just being someone's side piece and just whatever you're okay with accepting at that time, just because it's fulfilling something.
Mo?
Well, first, that wouldn't necessarily apply to me. I support open relationships because, like you said, sometimes, like, let's say I was in one, I'm in one and you're in one, except I know and you don't. That's, most of the time the only difference. A lot of people are in open relationships and they just don't know it. But my problem, I think, is that you let a nigga slide and he figure skate. So I think that,
that was so cute.
If you tell a man, you can have you can't be with anybody else, only me, he's probably going to have some infidelity, go sleep with somebody else. If you tell him you can have sex with other people, just wear a condom, he can go have sex with somebody else without a condom. I think the line is always going to be stretched, most times, not all the time, but most times. And so I think if you set like a really standard boundary of it's just me and you and something happens, then I think it's just easier to accept, like, you made this mistake, or I just don't like what happened, as opposed to you open your boundaries beyond your own comfort level and say, I'm succeeding to your nature and I'm going to let you do X, Y, and Z because I don't think that you can control it. And then he's going to do even more than that. I think that's harder to live with.
So, oh wow, figure skating, that was great. So, you guys got me speechless on this because it still doesn't answer the question of when you guys were single and you were dating, some of us openly knew that the men we were dating were also seeing other people. Why are we more accepting of that than if a man says, hey, I don't believe in sleeping around. I want to have a commitment with you. I want to have a commitment with X, Y, and Z as well. I'm going to make sure you're taken care of. We're going to plan a family, and this is the unit that we have. Seems like that would be a little more honorable. Lisa?
I think with what you just said, as far as women being okay with being side pieces or the extra, I think those relationships are very transactional. So we know what we're dealing with, but we know we're only dealing with it because we're trying to get something from it as well. Versus when you're in a committed relationship, that's where those feelings and love and expectations come into place. And I think when those type of emotions take over, our reasoning kind of goes out the window. In the beginning, like you said, when you're doing the whole, the side piece situation, everybody's happy. He's getting what he wants. The woman is obviously getting what she wants. Everyone's taken care of. There is nothing more, nothing less. You understand what you're getting into before you got into it.
Yeah, but I think also, though, to be honest, I think also some women take it and accept it because that's all they can get. Meaning, if they know, well, I'm not going to be able to get him to settle down as long as I can get him anyway, sometime, then I'll take that. I don't think a lot of women are going into that open-minded, because if they were, then we'll have a lot more polygamous relationships out there, marriages out there. I think
that's true too.
Yeah, I think they accept it because it's like, well, then they have no other choice. That's what it is. Oh, he hasn't committed to me. I just got to take what's available until or unless he wants something more of a commitment. And then you're asking him to do something that is what some of the other men said before, quote unquote, against his nature. Ifa Bukola, you had your hand up.
Well, I think it's a provision, affection and attention, is that's a great provision. And some women are okay with that provision, in their life because they may have figured out the other parts, for themselves. And really, in a polygynous situation, that's the detached disposition that each wife would have to evolve to, if they were to have a healthy outcome, because attachment cannot come into polygyny. That's where the corrosion begins. It begins in attachment, and when emotional obsession begins, that's where the mischief just oozes out, and it spreads when there's this emotional attachment. People like that tend to have a healthier emotional circumstance with their self, although the self-esteem could be lacking if it's for reasons of I don't feel like I'm good enough, to have something more outwardly witnessed, by the community, but if I'm staying on track, with the point here, the whole side person thing is just like the story of what are we already doing anyway. If we could bring what happens anyway and what we're doing anyway out into the open and add responsibility and public acknowledgement to it, I think we can go a long way. Because I think we're pretending a lot because of public opinion. We don't want to be scrutinized. We don't want to be judged. We don't want to be criticized. We don't want to be examined by the public. So there's this mask that, we wear as humans, where we have an opinion that fits the public opinion about the situation. But if that public opinion were not there, I think we could find our sincerity and our authenticity about the matter. And a lot of us might agree to something that we probably wouldn't in the face of public opinion. But, look what we're doing in secret. Look what we're doing in the dark anyway. You ask a lot of children who their mothers are or who their fathers are, plural. They're witnesses that we are practicing polygamy, polygyny, polygamy, and polyamory more than we are monogamy. You understand? So can we bring this out in the open, be honest with ourselves and authentic, and add responsibility and public acknowledgement to it?
Well, and well said. I also want to bring up, we talked about previously with the men that we went back to history and from a religious context of it. You had many men in the Bible who had multiple wives. And in the Quran, you have the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings of Allah be upon him, who has gave permission for men to have up to 4 wives. What do you think about the fact that this is, some men will say, a part of history? If it was good for the men in the Bible or the men in the Quran, then it is for me. Hannah? Okay, we're gonna go ahead and move to Mo.
Yeah, I think that goes back to culture. I think it's more of a Western world thing, the way we romanticize relationships. I think marriages are very romance centered in the Western hemisphere. And, in Muslim, indigenous, Hindu cultures, it's not viewed the same. So it kind of makes sense to me why that might happen in another region of the world. It's kind of like what we've been talking about this entire time, of like when you're doing it for love versus when you're doing it for, structure and efficiency. And I would guess in the context of the Quran, it was probably more so geared towards structure and efficiency than it was towards the romantic love of 2024 in America.
Nicola, you put your hand up.
Yo, that excellent. That was level and square, in my opinion. That was level and square. It's actually exactly what I was going to bring up. That word, romance, because that was pre-romance era. When romance entered into relationship dynamics, that's when the delusion came in. You understand? That's when false expectations came in. That's also where obsession, comes in. But when there are distinct roles of every person, and we realize we need security, we need efficiency, and by us coming together, we can increase that and we can reinforce it. Especially back then, where technology was not at a place where we could fold time so fast. How much time did it take to wash clothes? How much time did it take to prepare a meal? How far did you have to walk, just to get water? So everyone had roles to play. You can't just drop the kids off at childcare, or possibly, grandma was right there, within a community. And furthermore, how often can perversion enter in when this is a public acknowledged relationship, not a secret relationship, So rather it's monogamous or polygamous, when your relationship is not announced to the community, where the community can show concern and inquiry about the status of your relationship. How is your wife? How are your wives? How are the children? Those things is what keeps integrity upheld. When you know that the community is going to question you or be curious about your wife, they're going to look at her face when she's out in the market. They're going to see, is she happy or not? Are the children happy or not? That is what keeps a man in check, with himself. You understand? I hope I'm not going astray by adding that point, but romance does indeed distort what relationships really could be about.
Yeah. The idea of romance. Hannah?
Oh, I'm sorry. Could you ask the question again?
I said, with the Christianity, there were men in the Bible who had multiple wives, and in the Quran had multiple wives. What do you say to that? That men can argue that this was in history. This was a religious and spiritual thing.
Right. So I do agree with Mo completely. Like Ifeanyi said, I love the way she articulated what she said, as far as like romance and the way that things were, back in the Bible, in the Quran times. A lot of the things that are being talked about, everything in the Bible, you see in current days. So I think it's just the intentions behind it that change things, and the intent, like efficiency, or the fact that maybe the woman and children, if you look in the Bible, are always held at a high regard, like highly respected. Like it's honorable, or it's an honorable thing to respect women and children, and women without husbands, widows, and how they should be treated. And I think that a lot of times that, culturally and societally and economically, it made sense for there to be multiple women who are in a situation with one man and being supported and being taken care of, and being held at a different regard. So I definitely agree with that. Times are very different than they were. That people's intentions for being in relationships are very different than they were, or than what the foundation was structurally designed to originally be, I'd say. So yeah.
Okay, so it sounds like it was more about emotions. Romanticizing, or romance, comes from emotions, and emotions is this, like a seasonal thing, comes and goes, right? Do you think that based on the emotions that monogamy brings, Do you think that monogamy is failing our community, Lisa?
Absolutely. I feel like emotions have us in this fairy tale mindset of what a relationship is supposed to look like. And it's unrealistic, to be honest.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like that old saying, what is it? It takes a village to raise a child. I feel like that is so true in so many different aspects of just relationships and the structure of how it used to be, with the times that you're referring to. Now we have just this idea of what this fairy tale picket fence, um, quote unquote, traditional relationship is supposed to look like. And I feel like it is against most of our nature, which is why they keep failing. Not saying all of them. And even those relationships that last, 60, 70, 80 plus years, you cannot tell me that there was never a point in time where infidelity did not come into play.
Mm-hmm.
I seriously doubt that. So it's either you just settle in and you just stick it out just to stick it out, or you kind of realize that some of those things and some of those ideas that have been placed in our head are not, it's just not realistic, to be honest.
Okay, Hannah, you had your hand up.
Yes. I don't think that monogamy is failing our community. I think that it's, even if it were, let's say, more looked upon for people to be in polygamous relationships, I think that ultimately that, and you even see it now, even with the way that things are now, that things are being romanticized, period, in monogamy and polygamy as well. I think that just is not the actual action of monogamy, because some people have an unreal expectation of, being with one person and what they expect out of that one person. And sometimes it can be looked at as efficiency too. Like, it's more efficient for it to just be me and you raise a couple kids together, and we coexist together and not have to deal with any drama of outside people, or, we can deal with the discipline that we're currently at, or whatever. That's also a contract too. So I think it's just what's being taught and what's being, all the time broadcasted and on social media, what's being talked about. People are being influenced to think a certain way about monogamy and polygamy. So I think it's just what are we learning, what are we taking in, and what are we believing? That's kind of what's destroying our community as a whole. Can't just pin the blame on monogamous relationships.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of things that could be destroying our community. You're right.
Right.
But if we bring up facts and divorce rates and the leading cause of divorce, which is usually extramarital affairs, then that's what I'm saying. Are we trying to make something work that is not working, that is failing us? That was my, basically, I wanted to point out, my intention of pointing that out.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good point that you put it that way.
Yeah.
As far as the infidelity aspect.
Yeah.
And if that would even solve anything.
Facts.
So it kind of, I get what, I totally understand that, and how it could be looked at as there may be a solution to this thing if it's, polygamy, or are we just living in delusion when it comes to monogamy? And I think it's just what we're being taught thing, what people are struggling with thing,
Mm-hmm.
So, because I think that there are instances of, monogamous relationships working, and then you have the flip side of, you look at other places that have higher marital rates, right? And what type of marriages are being practiced there. And in times you see, polygamous relationships or polyamorous, I feel like I'm saying it right, but where they work and the marriage rate is higher. And if you, just follow success clues, and you can say, okay, this is what I want. Let me learn about what it takes to get there, how to make it successful, just like a person should do if they choose to be with one person. You should look at when it works, when it does work, whatever the percentages is, what are these people doing with the patterns, and how do you make it successful?
Yeah. Ifa Bukola?
Well, I think that monogamy, I don't see any problem or flaw with monogamy itself. But what I do see what I do see a missed opportunity with is that we haven't made it acceptable yet for men to have that option without being scrutinized or criminalized for, what they say they prefer. We haven't accepted that yet as being part of his nature, some men's nature. We haven't accepted it. And as long as we're not accepting it, we end up with coercion. Because nature is not something you're going to change. So when you don't accommodate for what's natural in a person, the person enters into coercion where they have no choice but to agree in order to have or in order to experience. And then nature prevails. It prevails in the dark, it prevails down the street, it prevails across the train tracks, just like Granddaddy did. You know what I'm saying? So I think we are at a place where we had enough time to do trial and error on romance, love, infatuation. You're responsible for making me feel good, and you better keep me in this euphoric feeling all day, every day, or I'm getting rid of you. Keep me high in love. Make me feel like I'm really special every day. No, I think we learned the lesson that that's our responsibility to ourselves, to give ourselves happiness, to give ourselves peace, to give ourselves security, fulfillment, all of those things. And we show up and we join forces with someone who has accomplished the same for themselves. And we share what we have. I think we figured it out. But now it's time to release the things that the contaminants that used to come with that thinking. It's time to let go of the contaminants that came with that thinking. And a lot of it has to do with programmed romantic ideals, especially through music, movies, things of that nature. And we end up with trauma and pain because we're force-fitting things that nature doesn't accommodate for. Some men are polygamous, and they should be criminalized because they are. However, where the problem comes in, that is, he needs now to make that contract at the beginning. Mm-hmm. You don't let her know later on down the road, after she already fell in love with you, or after she's already feeling committed to you. She's just, feeling like you're the one and all these other things, and then you bring that up. That's a tragedy.
Yeah.
Men have to start leading with that if that's who you are. And that's a big problem. I think it's time now that men have to start leading with that if that's who you really are.
Okay.
And, so, yeah.
I'm glad you said that. Ladies, I'm going to ask you several questions, quick fire questions, as we wrap this up. I want to hear yes, no, maybe, and a quick response. If you do know up front when you're getting involved with a man that he is polygamous, would you respect that more and accept that more? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Gives you a choice, right, to choose. Okay. If you are already in a relationship and your mate comes to you and says he wants to enter in a polygamous relationship, would you be open to it if you get to help pick the wives, the additional partners?
Yes. You said, would I be open to it?
Yes.
No.
Okay. No, yes. I heard yes and no. And
maybe it depends on where we are within that relationship.
Okay, maybe. Do you think that you can be more accepting of it if there are boundaries set, expectations are clear of what we're doing this for, and there's commitment that, time and finances and everything could be as equal as possible? Do you think that you can digest that more?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Ifa Bukola, that is the questions that I have. Ifa Bukola, did you have any questions?
Well, I don't have any questions, but I definitely want to express my appreciation for the fact that you're hosting a conversation that I think it's time for our generation to have. What I mean by our generation is, collectively, we're at a place where it's time to be authentic after learning what we learned. How much more authentic can we be? And making sure that there's respect that goes with whatever it is that we say we're going to do. Not misunderstanding the idea of polygamy as a license to go and hurt people or mistreat people, abuse people, oppress people. That needs to be completely pushed away from that idea, detached from the whole idea of polygamy, because relationships, no matter what type of relationship it is, it should remain sacred. There's people's hearts involved. There's people's legacy involved. There's people's reputation involved, and there's just too much at stake. But, maybe this could be a beginning of some conversations that allows an authentic representation of how we're showing up in our relationships and what we can accomplish if we can be authentic, So I think it's a really healthy, discussion or forum, to have. And I'm glad that everybody was here.
And I do have one more question, because here's the funny thing. I don't know if you guys have ever done this before, ladies on the line. When you see or read about some star, right? Let's say a Chris Brown or Idris Elba or Offset. Let's bring Cardi B's husband into it. When you see them getting caught with cheating, or they broke up because they were cheating, do you ever think, well, he's Chris Brown, of course, that's acceptable? Do you ever sit there and give people a pass because of their status? Or am I delusional? Because I hear women say that. Well, this is X, Y, and Z. Usher, are you thinking he's not going to have another? You stupid for leaving him because of that. Or some of these basketball players, and you find out that the woman is leaving because maybe he had an extramarital affair, and you sit there and think she's stupid for leaving. I don't care. He's this, and that. Do you think that the status of the man allows them to get away with more a possibility of having a polygamy or polygamous relationship, Lisa?
I think as a society, we've accepted it more. I think that we give them passes because most of those women in those type of relationships are getting something on the flip side. So if you have a man of that status and you allow him to, or be okay with the idea of him being able to sleep around, it's probably because you're getting compensated in some other area that makes you okay with it. I don't think that should allow them to do it just because of their status. No, because I still think that, once again, feelings come into place. And those feelings and emotions and love still are there, no matter what that status of that man is. I don't know. That's a tricky question.
How can those feelings and emotions go away if another woman's having the same feelings and emotions? Mo, what do you think? You think a man's status gives him a pass?
I don't think it should, and it wouldn't for me. But I think I understand. I think what you're saying about those other women. I think those are women who, because of the person's status, they're using the logic of, I am aware that getting into this relationship, I'm getting in a relationship with a person who 100,000 other women want. I'm weighing this as an option. Do I think there will be some infidelity? Yes. Would I be okay with it? Yes. I think women who would be okay with an open relationship with that celebrity are judging a woman who would not be okay with it. And at the end of the day, it just comes down to character integrity. And like Ifa Bukola was saying earlier, how you're socializing the situation. Like we're at a fork in the road where we can, you know, change the path and change the discussion and say, this is the kind of relationship I want. I probably at some point will want to have sex with other people. I think we can have that conversation more transparently at this point. And I think the problem is if that's even a person of that status is lying and coercing and saying, no, that's not what I want. And then over time, they kind of try to trickle their way into it. Even at that status, you're still deceiving the woman that you're with.
Okay. Hannah, you think a man's status gives him a pass?
Oh, no, absolutely not. I don't think it gives him a pass whatsoever. I think I do agree with Lisa when I said just as a society, sometimes we just give them a pass just because of either idolizing or just things that they may do for the culture or community. You know, we try to give people that are in or that have that type of status and have done good things, we kind of try to sweep all the other stuff under the rug real quick, just based off of the degree of, you know, what it is. But in regards to infidelity, like you said, with Cardi B and stuff, I don't know how I feel about them specifically because, you know, they have a lot of drama and, you know, publicity stunts and stuff like that. But I think that people that were in like long marriages and like stuff like that, where you see people like Denzel or, you know, people who have been in long committed relationships, you know, we don't know to what degree. And a lot of the times we see where the infidelity comes in and they split up or whatever, but we don't know, you know, what has happened in those marriages that are still together, or if, you know, it's something that we would even accept. So, but I don't think it gives any pass for doing it in the first place, because like everybody else said, I agree with everybody else. There's, you know, feelings involved, emotions involved, love involved, you know, deceit and betrayal is something that a person can experience no matter what their status is, you know, homeless or have, you know, be completely wealthy, you know, it doesn't matter.
But that's just the thing that you said, deceit and betrayal. If the man is trying to be honorable and bring it to you and you know, and openly, then the deceit and betrayal is gone. But I feel like a lot of women shut it down and is not open to it. So then
Right.
that sneaking and deceit and betrayal comes into play because, you know, some women are just not accepting of it and don't even want to look at it from the man's perspective. Thank you for that, Hannah. Ifa Bukola, you had your comment?
I think it's a matter of you know, benefit for burden. You know, if you want me to have this much burden, how much benefit do I get, you know, in exchange for it? You know, it's like there's the less benefit that a man can, or status that a man can afford some women, the longer the list of expectations she has, you know. But if there's a direct transfer of benefit or status, you know, the list can damn near disappear, you know. Especially with status, validation or attention, you know, that goes along with it. So, you know, her standards and her expectations, I never did believe, or I was never convinced that it's fixed. You know, it's adjustable according to how much benefit or convenience, you know, that she can have out of the situation.
Facts. That's so true. Well, I am going to wrap up today's session with just my thoughts and my opinions. I think that polygamous relationships are necessary for some individuals. I don't think it's meant for all men who cannot be responsible, men or women, who cannot be responsible, disciplined, and mature in general in life. So therefore, I don't think you need to bring in, you know, multiple women who can have more and more children for you. I think that if a man can understand the woman's perspective and present it in a way, I know that some of the men on the previous podcast, they said, you know, I'm gonna bring it up front, you know, getting into the relationship I'm going to let you know that I'm a polygamous person. I think that is more honorable and respectable, as well as you can have some couples that's been together for a while and then want to entertain it or bring it in to play. I do think there's more older women who are open to polygamous relationships than there are younger women. So I would say like 35 plus are going to definitely be more open to polygamous relationships. Women who are 35 plus and have children, they're going to be more open to a polygamous relationship. We can get into a debate of why that is. You know, I know, Ifa Bukola, you've had some lectures on why that could be. But, you know, as an older woman myself, I would be open to it. I come from that background. I was not open to it when I was younger with my ex-husband. But living life and seeing different things, you know, my feeling and my perspective have changed. However, I do think that there's got to be some level of respect, you know, on both sides and consideration on both sides, because I do believe that it is a cultural and religious history of ours. For especially African Americans, that is, you know, our roots. And so, you know, it's definitely going to be challenging. It's not easy, but neither is monogamous relationships. So, I think that honestly, to be honest, we're already there. As we stated before, we are already there. It's just that, you know, it's being done in the dark because of what society frowns upon, you know, but we are already there. And I think that it's going to continue to come out more and more in the open, and it's going to be more and more acceptable. And then we'll start seeing that in society, this is just what it is. And either you get on board or you get left behind. But as I said before, I do not think that it is for every man and it is not for every woman, but it is a necessity, I believe, in our community to help combat a lot of issues that are out here. So with that being said, does anybody else have any other closing remarks or questions?
Yeah, I think that we learned already how valuable a father's presence is, or male figures and influence, how important it is, and what can happen if we don't have it across generations. And that should be in the back of someone's mind, you know, out there, when we weigh out that decision. Is this for me or not? Is it always about you? How you should approach relationships? Could it also be about your children?
I like that. Anybody else?
Find what works for you and just living your truth like the world isn't watching.
Whoa, that's an explosion. Find what works for you and living your truth if the world wasn't watching.
I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on this. Make a comment. Let's talk about it. More discussions. We'll bring it back and continue to have dialogue on this. The views, thoughts, and opinions expressed by guests on this podcast are solely those of the guests and do not necessarily reflect the views, opinions, and positions of Shannon P., the host, and the business associated with this podcast. Shannon P. and the Can You Relate podcast crew are not responsible for any statements made by guests and do not endorse any opinions shared unless explicitly stated.